Welcome to the Winner's Circle, a drag racing podcast. I'm your host, Leroy Lease. Our goal is to help you win more rounds at the track by sharing tips and tricks. This episode is brought to you by DragTracker.com, an online logbook serving the racing community through tools and technology. For this episode, we're going to cover the top 3 things to improve your starting line game. This is episode 3, but before we dig in, I want to encourage you to check us out at DragTracker.com. On the right side of the website is a voicemail link. If you click that link, you can leave me a voicemail and share stories or questions for a future topic on the show. Also, to leave a comment about this episode, go to dragtracker.com/podcast and click on episode 3. There you'll find a transcript with links and notes from the show. Finally, we put out a YouTube version of each podcast, so if you want to leave a comment there, feel free to do so on our YouTube channel. You can also ask questions and interact. We'd love to hear from you. So that's at youtube.com/dragtracker. All right, so let's jump right in. Top 3 things to improve your starting line game. So a couple months ago, I got to watch video footage of me drag racing when I first started racing. And I looked like an amateur. I got to admit it. When I saw the video, I was really surprised at how much it looked like I didn't know what I was doing. And what I mean by that is when I saw the car pull out of the burnout box and as the car made the way up to the starting line, I really didn't have any purpose or reason behind what I was doing. I just kind of wandered up there until I got into the first staging bulb, and then I really wasn't sure if I should be bringing up the RPM yet, and then I drifted into the second, the staging beams, and it looked kind of crazy. It didn't look consistent where, I'm recording this right now. It's January. It's been record lows. I haven't been in the race car in months, but I can tell you exactly everything I do. I have a plan for exactly how to get myself ready. Everything I do from burnout until I'm actually at the finish line. It all has a certain order. And what's great about that is that it makes everything consistent. So if there's a breakage while I'm on the starting line or if somebody oils down the track, nothing messes me up because I just pick up wherever I was at in the routine or I start the routine over. So that's why I wanted to go over these top 3 things that you need to improve your starting line game. You actually need to make sure you have a game. So there's a game plan. So that's what we're going to go through. So the first little nugget of information I want to share with you, this one I think is worth everything you've paid for admission, and that is to focus inside the bulb. I don't know why I keep talking with my hands. Those of you that can see me on YouTube, I tend to be waving my hands a lot. Focus inside the bulb. So that means, okay, so let me give you a little background on this. Back when I was racing, when I started in the mid-90s, they used incandescent bulbs. So when you looked into the bulb, you could actually kind of start to see the filament glow, and that was I use that to make me consistent, whether it was nighttime or dark time. If I was focusing so much I could see the actual filament glow, that meant that I was reacting as quickly as possible to the very first thing I saw. And we thought that would make me consistent from week to week, track to track. Tracks set up their Christmas trees slightly different. Some have the bottom 2 bulbs slightly inset, while the other, or maybe the top bulbs are inset. They're all different. They're different spaces apart. So you need to have something that helps you really focus, and one of my things was to focus inside of the bulb. Now, it's changed a little bit because they're LED, and there's nothing to see to start glowing. They're all instantly on. But I use the same technique. I'm staring so that if I can see one of the single LEDs inside of, the whole floodlight LED lamp, that's what I'm going for, because it's that level of focus that helps me be consistent race to race, track to track, week to week. So that's what I would do. And part of why I think this also works, or part of why I think that this is really a good strategy, also applies to if you've ever been out shooting, recreationally at targets, and you're with somebody who's got more experience than you, which is anybody more than me. I haven't shot very often. But the couple of times I've had, I would sometimes miss the whole target. And I thought, wow, I'm a terrible shot. But besides being a terrible shot, people would say to me, well, that's because you're not picking a small enough target. If you aim small, you'll miss small. So the same kind of thing with the light. If you're just waiting for the whole light to come on, you might actually, your body may start to react to the second bulb. You know, you may jump or jolt because you're not focused on exactly the right thing. And in the same way, so shooting a gun, you focus on a very small target, you pick a point and focus on that. So if you're out hunting for deer, you want to make sure you're picking behind their shoulder blade, right? Not just aiming at the deer, because you'll miss big. So the same thing applies. And so that's tip number 1, is to focus inside the bulb. Tip number 2. For some people, this may sound like it's kind of just a silly thing you do for fun. It may not seem like it has any real benefit, but I really believe it does. And that is seat time. Seat time is huge. And I mean just sitting in the seat. Car's not running. I mean, it could be wintertime. The car can be in your garage right now. And you will have a benefit for going out and sitting in the car and just going over the gauges in your mind. Close your eyes. Can you picture the dashboard of your race car right now? Do you know what every switch does? Could you reach for it and touch the right switch without looking? I think you should be able to do that. I mean, if you really want to up your starting line game, you need to know where every switch is. I don't understand how guys do it where they're jumping in and out between cars and winning. I mean, I've seen it, and it's amazing to me because for me, part of what makes my starting line game hopefully better than the next guys is that I am super comfortable with how my car, how everything is, where everything is. You know, there's no question if I look down at the water temperature gauge and it were running hot, I know without even looking where the coolant fan is. I mean, I could hit it right now. If I'm sitting in the race car right now, I'm hitting that switch. For me, coming up to this pre-staging and staging, I have to set my race pack computer to start recording. I have to set the tachometer to record because we've got one of those recording tachs. So I've got all these things that need to happen. I need to know exactly where those buttons are so that there's no question. Every single time when I come up, I just do it. And that way we're always collecting data. We're always saving this stuff. So number 2, the tip number 2 is seat time. Practice sitting in your car. You can set a recordable tach anytime. So you could go sit in your car right now and record 0 on the tach, but just get used to what that process is. So there's a lot of value there, I think. Number 3 is a ritual or a rehearsal. A ritual means it's some set of practices that you undergo in a, well, I don't have the Merriam-Webster version of what a ritual is, but it's something that would bring you peace, bring you comfort before each run. That's what I mean. So what does my ritual look like? Well, I'm happy to share that with you. So my ritual is after I get done with a burnout, and like I said, this is the part that made me think of even sharing top 3 things that, will improve your starting line game, is to have a game plan, have a ritual. So my ritual is this. I do my burnout, and after I'm done with my burnout, usually what I'm going to do is look at my dial-in, because they usually have boards up that tell you what the tower thinks your dial-in is. So I'll check my dial-in. If that looks good, then I take a couple deep breaths, make sure the guys that are racing in front of me are finishing up, that they're, leaving the track, nothing weird is happening there. And then I look over at the opponent, see if they're about where they need to be getting ready to stage. I'll pull up, and I do kind of take my time, but I'm looking down on the ground and I'm making sure I know exactly where the staging beams are. So I pull up to the staging beams. As soon as I get to light the first bulb, I take a deep breath. And this is really important. I take a very deep breath. And I find that if I force my shoulders down, it helps me de-stress. And there's some psychological theories that, if you're walking around and you just start smiling, that your body will go, oh, I'm in a good mood. And you'll actually be in a good mood just because you decided to smile. So in the same way, if I tell my body to do the things that make it think it's not stressed, it helps remove some of the stress, or at least I believe it does. It helps me. If I got a new girlfriend up in the stands or, you know, my dad's putting pressure on me to win some rounds, or, you know, it's the end of the point season, whatever it is, all these things can contribute. You know, your car owner's watching, the boss's wife is going to talk about how well or not well you did on Monday. These are a lot of things you might have to worry about. So as soon as I light that first bulb, I take a deep breath and just let the stress disappear. Now, it doesn't completely go away. If I'm really nervous, like at the bracket finals, you know, or division race, I take the breath, but it doesn't do a whole lot. But it couldn't hurt, right? It helps to be trying to de-stress. Well, then I actually hit both buttons on my dashboard that represent the recording tack and the race pack. So once a race pack is on and the recording tack, now I'm getting close to being ready to go. But I still have a couple more things that are part of my ritual. I'll look up at the first bulb. If you race with a delay box, that's where you're going to focus. But for me, foot brake racing, I want to see where the first bulbs are, but I also look at where the third bulbs are. Because as I mentioned earlier, different tracks have different layouts for where the bulbs actually sit, how far apart they are. So I'm just looking. I just want to remind myself, okay, that's where the bulbs are. And, you know, I look at the third bulb, and that's the bulb I'm going to look into. And so I'm focused on these things, but then I raise the RPM. I'm foot braking, so I go down on the accelerator, push into the gas a little more, and get it up to whatever, 2,400, 2,500 RPM. And then I take another deep breath. And this is really important because it's a reminder that I'm not stressed and that, you know, we're ready for this. I've already rehearsed what the run's going to look like. I've rehearsed whose tree's coming down. I may remind myself one more time as I take this deep breath. But if my RPM is set and I'm ready to go, I'm just inching into that last bulb to light the last bulb. I'm inching my way in because I like to shallow stage. That's what I do. So I just let myself go in, and then as soon as I'm in and that I can get that bottom bulb to twinkle, that we're fully staged, then I look at the third bulb, and I don't look at the first bulb again. I know where it's at peripherally, but I'm focused inside the third bulb, and that's my ritual. I mean, from there, it's about executing everything that I thought about leading up to the race, but I do that every single time. And if the other guy double bulbs me, that is, he pulls in and lights both bulbs, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't affect my game plan at all because all the things I do take less than 10 seconds. I've been at tracks where they had a staging timer and it would start counting down as soon as somebody was fully staged. The other person had to be fully staged within 15 seconds. Well, I'm sure that my whole little routine, my whole ritual takes less than 10 seconds. So go ahead, jump into the stage. I don't care. You know, if they got a deep stage, they may get in there early. Again, no problem. Also, I don't play any of those games. Almost every time, as I've looked over my gauges, by the time I'm pre-staged, the other guy's ready to go too. So I don't bother playing those games. If you have to play head games to win a round, to me it just feels cheap, and I just don't bother with it. But it doesn't affect me if somebody else is trying to throw me off too. So you have that as your defense mechanism against people that are fooling around. So I encourage you to have a game plan, have a set of rituals. Again, if they're not the same things I do, it doesn't matter. All that matters is you have something that you can count on that works every time. You know, if you're jumping from foot brake to delay box, I actually think the ritual is more important so that you remember exactly what kind of car you're in or exactly how the launch is going to go down, you know, because they can be very different depending on the kind of car you're in. But if you race in the same car every week, that's really going to serve you well because these things will become more and more comfortable, more common. You'll notice if something's going wrong with the car, you'll be able to tell immediately because you know what the car is doing. And I think all those things, that comfort, that security in your plan, your game plan, it's going to help you win rounds. So give it a try. You know, I would love to hear, do you have a ritual that you use? Let me know. Do a video response, leave a voicemail on the website, whatever. But I would love to know if there's some other kind of way that you found that helps you feel comfortable at the starting line. All right. Well, we got a questioner. This is from Drew in Spokane, Washington. He says he likes the podcast, but he's having trouble, or he has a question on judging the finish line. Recently got his license, moved into a 69 Woody Gilmore slingshot that runs at 8.4s, mid-8s. He's good on the tree and the car's consistent, but he's having trouble judging the stripe. He's in the 160s mile per hour, and he says when he's coming up on a car doing 115 or 120, it seems impossible to know when to lift. He says his car has no electronics, so he's foot brake racing. And so his question is there a trick or is it all experience? Well, first of all, if you have a question, feel free to ask. We'll try to answer as many as we can. This is a great question. My car usually runs 120, 130, so I asked some other guys who've been running for a while on one of the forums, and their thing was, unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with experience. So seat time and actually being in the car doing 160 miles an hour is really your best bet. So get out there and do some grudge matches. Do, a Friday night test and tune. Just get more time in the car at the tracks that you go to. Here's the thing. If you run the numbers, 160 miles an hour means you're doing about 230 feet per second. And when you're coming up on a guy doing 120, he's doing about 170 feet per second. So that's a difference of 60 feet per second that you're gaining on the other car. So if your car has, a 9 or 10 foot wheelbase, that means you're gaining 6 or 7 car lengths every second, gaining on your opponent as you get toward the finish line. So 6 or 7 car lengths, 60 feet, that's hard to judge. That's all going to happen in the last second. Every 6 feet is, 0.1 seconds. I don't know how you can get around, doing that other than experience. So here's the thing you can do. When you're running time trials, in your mind, look at where you pass the cone before the finish line, how long it takes to get from there to the finish line. Just kind of feel that out. Make a mental note of it. When you race other cars, and you're coming down on them, if you're not always ahead of them, watch how long it takes for them to go down the track and pass those markers. When I'm at the track, a lot of times I'll take friends down to the finish line and I'll go, let's watch how, some of these guys are finishing their races. Let's see how much they're winning by. If you can tell that you're going to win by a car length, you need to do, or 2. You really, in bracket racing, you never want to beat them good. So if you can tell that you're going to pass them way before the finish line, you need to not only be letting off, but be hitting the brakes, tapping the brakes as you go across the line. If you're really having trouble, the other guys probably aren't used to people going that fast either. So the trick is that you're going to get used to it over time, and they won't necessarily, because you'll have different opponents every time, but it'll be practice and experience for you. So I would say just keep at it. Just keep trying. You say that you have experience in a Super Pro car. That experience is going to serve you well. Things are just happening faster. So, just keep paying attention to the last, 320 feet. When you get from the 1,000-foot cone, just see what's going on. Seat time where you're more comfortable with the starting line is going to help you. But the advantage of having the faster car in bracket racing is the other guy has the first chance to make a mistake. Not that you want to count on that, but that's part of the advantage of having a faster car. So the other guy has the first opportunity to red light, and you have more power. So if you let off too early, you can hit the gas again and have more power to re-overtake them. But I understand in an 8.5 second run, things are going pretty fast, and so just keep trying. Keep your chin up. Also, as I was researching this question, I found a piece of software called Crew Chief Pro, and they have a really handy little tool in it that's called the Finish Line Manager, and you can put in your ET and what your opponent's ET would be, and it'll tell you the difference between your two cars at the different intervals as you go down the track. So that may be of interest to you. If you're, I was talking about you're doing 230 feet per second, he's doing 170 feet per second. You can actually iron out all those numbers and see, well, that means in the last, 1.9 seconds, I'm going to cover the last 320 feet, and kind of maybe even time yourself to figure out, oh, wow, that's a really quick timer. Oh, that should be plenty of time to make a decision. Anyway, it's called Finish Line Manager, and it's part of Crew Chief Pro, so you might want to check that out. I've never worked with the piece of software, but just looking at the screenshots on the website, it looks like it might be helpful for you, so thought I'd let you know about that. You also have an option. Bracket racing is not about being the fastest car. It's about making the fewest mistakes and getting across the finish line first. So you have an option. You could attempt to slow the car down. I actually looked at your Facebook pictures, and I saw the car, and it looks like it's supercharged. So I don't know if you can change the amount of, change some gearing on there and maybe slow it down a little bit. I don't know all the options you have for slowing it down, but something like that might be an option that you look at just to get so it's not so much of a jump. So you can use more of your experience in the slower car, use that to your advantage as you get up to speed on the faster car. But that's a great question, and really appreciate your feedback on the podcast. All right, well, thanks so much everybody for joining us today. This is episode 3. If you like the podcast, feel free to rate us on iTunes. We're also on Stitcher Radio, and we're on YouTube. So yeah, we're all around, all the different ways you can get to this information. We're here to help. Hopefully it's helpful. If you want to leave a comment, feedback, question, whatever, just visit DragTracker.com/podcast and leave a comment. Yeah, I'm happy to incorporate everything I can. Like I said, I really want to grow this for the community, and I love that people are getting involved. So that's it. All right, everybody. Race safe, race to win, and take care.